So welcome. I always talk about travel and kind of stuff. So I thought while I'm traveling, why shouldn't I show you the places where I'm at? So right now, as you can see, the Eiffel Tower, I'm in Paris, and you know, today we're going to talk about the really important subject, and that is passports. Now, maybe you've heard other videos, you've heard other people talk about how many advantages it has when you have multiple passports, but actually, 2025, it's not just cool to have multiple passports, it's really necessary, and I'm here to tell you why. Look at the world right now, right? So many safe countries, so many countries with high standards of living. What is happening to them? Look at the UK, for example. Free speech is gone. You'll get into jail if you say something wrong online, police will show up. And nowadays, that's the thing, you cannot live off grid. You cannot just go into the woods and live your own life, not pay any taxes. That doesn't work anymore, right? Nowadays, the only option that you have is to live on multiple grids at the same time, right? So you have options to switch grids. If your country goes to shit, you can switch the grid. And the easiest way to do that is by having multiple passports. And now somebody might say, I don't need a second passport. I live in another country, right? I have a residency, so why should I get another passport? Well, listen, especially if you're a guy, the draft, that's the big thing. Because if you don't have a second passport, once your country or once the politicians of your country decide that you guys are going to go to war, then you are going to be drafted, all right? And if you don't apply for the draft, then you're going to go to jail. So then you cannot go back to your country without going to jail or paying a big fine. And I'm here to tell you, right? If your country gets invaded for some reason, then fair enough. Go back to your country, fight for your country. That is your choice. But do you actually want to fight some random politicians' wars? Just because they have their differences, just because the weapon industry wants to make money, all of that jazz. I mean, you know that the world is corrupt. So why not be able to switch grids and have that choice to switch grids, all right? So because there are various ways to get passports, you need to figure out your own path to get multiple passports. So let me make you an example. Some countries, they give you a passport, or you can at least apply for citizenship if you have some kind of ancestry in that country. Ireland is a great example, right? If you have some ancestry in Ireland, for example, or Portugal even, then you can apply for citizenship. But obviously not everybody has Portuguese or Irish ancestry, all right? So figure out what your ancestry is. Where are you from? Especially you guys from the States. You guys are obviously not Native Americans, at least most of you are not. And so look at your family tree. Where are you guys from? And then you may be able to apply for citizenship if you have roots in a specific country that lets you apply for citizenship if you can prove ancestry. Now, the other thing is, in countries like Europe, like France, for example, or Germany, you need to stay there. You need to have a permanent residency for around 5 years. But here's the thing. If you're young and you still want to do your bachelor's or your master's, if you do that in one of those countries, then you don't have to stay there for 5 years, but you have to stay there for 2 years. So 2 years residency, and you can already apply for citizenship. If you have some money, right? There are a lot of countries that let you invest in their country, especially real estate. Like in most countries, it's around $250,000. Now, if you do have that money or not, only you know that, right? So that's why I'm saying everybody has their own path. Do you still want to do your bachelor's? Do you have some ancestry? And do you have a lot of money? Some countries that do have investment programs are Turkey, for example, and a lot of Caribbean countries. You can invest in their real estate and then you can already apply for citizenship even though you've never lived there, all right? Another country in Europe that lets you do this is Montenegro in the Balkans, a country from ex-Yugoslavia, right? So figure out what your budget is, figure out how much money you have, how much you're willing to invest, and then look at your plan. Now, if you don't have any of these things, let's say you don't want to do your master's or bachelor's, you don't want to do any kind of higher education, you don't have a lot of money, and you don't have any kind of ancestry. Now, here's the thing. There are some countries where you don't have to stay there for a long time. The most famous example is Argentina. Now, if you stay in Argentina for around 2 years, after you've applied for residency and you've been granted residency, then you can already apply for citizenship. That's only 2 years of your life, all right? If you stay in Argentina for 2 years, then you can apply. And that's how easy it is, because anybody can do that. Obviously, you need to show some proof of stable income and that kind of stuff, but you can already do that. Now, in the specific example of Argentina, the cracker is that most people who have an Argentinian passport, they cannot get rid of it. Even though officially you can give up your Argentinian passport, the judge has to decide, and in many cases the judge decides against it. So if for some reason Argentina decides to tax its citizens even abroad, like the US does or Eritrea does, then you're kind of screwed, right? Then you will have to figure out a way. So there's always a risk if you get a new citizenship, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. As I'm telling you, you need to be able to switch grids. Otherwise, you'll always be at the mercy of your state. And I know that nobody wants that, right? And that also goes for people who already have a very good passport, myself included, all right? Always get a plan B, and even better, get a plan B, get a plan C, and get a plan D. Technically, there are no limitations on how many passports you can get. Even though some countries, they tell you can only have one passport, only have two passports, like Iran. Iran officially, they don't allow dual citizenship. And I have some Iranian friends, they do have dual citizenship, right? But the problem is, if they want to go back to Iran or Iran, and the Iranian governments, they realize that they have a second passport, they will have trouble, all right? These are the kind of things that you need to look out for. Most Western countries, they allow dual citizenship or even multiple citizenship. And you need to do this in 2025, because in these countries where you can get a citizenship without ancestry and without living there for too long, these countries make it harder and harder. Back in the day, it was so easy to get the citizenship by just having an address residency and not even staying there for a whole year, right? Now it gets harder. They crack down on the paper residence. So you want to avoid that. You want to do this quickly right now. And the world is going to shit. You know that. And the last very important step, even if you get the new passport, right? You need to be able to integrate in these countries really quickly, because you need to have a social circle. You need to have a network, and you need to be able to speak the language and know the culture norms. You need to be that person who can go anywhere, and within a week or a month, you already have a very important and valuable social circle. So the next step, actually, if you want to really fast track that process, you can join the Chameleon Society, where you have one-on-one guidance from myself, and you'll join another community full of people who do the same thing actively. So if you get an Argentinian passport and there is someone from the community who lives in Buenos Aires, then you can go there, connect with that person, and they will already have a social circle ready for you. And also, if you join, I'll create a plan for you in order to get your passport, and also create a social circle wherever you go. Right now it's 80% off for the first 10 members. You heard that right, 80%. And so if you want to really fast track that process, join right now. So that's basically it. Act now. And always remember, blend in, stand out, and belong anywhere.